All right. So the cherry on top session. Yeah, we hope so.
Hope so.
We know so. It will be. This is going to be fascinating. This is the Homeland Security Enterprise Forum, but we all recognize that Homeland Security does not start at the nation's borders and shores, that it in fact takes partnership not only among ourselves within our 50 states and our territories, et cetera, but also takes international partners as well. And one thing I think we as a country have been remiss on is forgetting our neighbors here in the Western Hemisphere. We're very Eastern-focused, Eurocentric sort of thought process. We largely do not really engage to our south with our Western Hemisphere neighbors. And hopefully here today we can begin to address that issue. Here to work through some of the threats that we face from Central and South America and some of the push factors of migration that are causing some of the troubles and strains we see at the southern border is my friend Dr. Vanessa Newman, who is the president and founder of Asymmetrica and also the mom of Pablo, the Chihuahua.
Yeah, exactly. Pablo Emilio, who every Latin American knows who Pablo that's a reference to. Thank you very much. The Latinos are in the house, finally. So hopefully we'll wake you up. Wake up, wake up. And I wanted to say thank you very much to Rob Walker. This is an honor and a pleasure. Secretary General Almagro is a major personal hero of mine. So the opportunity to share the stage and be in conversation with him is a bit of a dream come true. I'm fortunate enough to also, I think, count you as a friend. I hope so.
Definitely.
And so
that part is right.
Okay, good. I got him here. So, and thank you also to Rob Walker at the Aspen Security Forum. He endured me year after year complaining, where is the Western Hemisphere? 3.5 days, where is Latin America? I mean, if the United States has identified as its big priorities, migration, trade, and narcotics, where's Latin America in your agenda? So thank you. So he got so sick of hearing me complain. He finally set up his own forum just so I could be quiet, anyway. So very happy that that the Western Hemisphere is part of the inaugural Homeland Security Enterprise Forum. I'm just going to trigger a bit of conversation here. I also want to recognize some other eminent Latinos who have been fighting the good fight, aside from Secretary General Hector Seamus, who's an advisor to Almagro, is here, and he's a great columnist at Infobae and a great fighter for democracy, integrity, and a sort of brother in arms. And Juan Zarate is over there, who is a hero of Deputy National Security Advisor, big Treasury's war, and anti-corruption, a big anti-corruption, financial integrity king. So I'd like to think that we Latinos have, sometimes contributed to the good fight. So let's start with that. Let's start with that, Secretary General, or however you would like me to, or Luis, or Secretary
Luis
General.
is fine.
Okay, Luis.
That's great.
So the conversation about migration, usually in the United States, is usually about sort of the threats from migration, right? The people crossing the southwest border and coming across. And we have seen, I think the unofficial Homeland Security numbers are that 20 times the number of Venezuelans are crossing the Rio Grande, which was something we hadn't seen before. Then they, in the first half of the year, then had crossed in all of 2019. 2020, of course, the pandemic, borders are closed. And the other thing we hear about is, of course, the Northern Triangle. And you've been a great fighter for democracy and the restoration of the institutional order, which is why we admire you. So why don't you talk about first of all, what are people fleeing? And then we'll take it from there. Why are they migrating, in your view?
Well, if you consider the biggest crisis of migration ever in the history of the hemisphere is the Venezuelan one. Then we can talk about the Cuban one as the second one. So we can say that people mainly are fleeing dictatorships and trying to, they don't want to live under a dictatorship, and they want to find new and better opportunities somewhere else. And those that they have not been dealing with dictatorships, and they are dealing sometimes with the imperfection of our democracies in the hemisphere, and that is also a tough thing. sometimes the imperfection of democracy means the tyranny of violence. And if we see, for example, our partners, member states in Central America, their lives in the small communities, big communities, is very tough. The lack of opportunities is mainly based because of lack of security and, of course, the prevalence of gangs or maras around. So those are, of course, the main reasons. If we look at the migration crisis of Venezuela, it's quite a tough one, no? Because this one, Venezuela, is the richest country in the hemisphere, the richest Latin American country. It has more resources than any other one, oil and whatever mineral and energy resource. So it's quite unfair what is happening to them. But it happens when the deterioration of institutions starts collapsing the whole system. For example, when institutions stop responding to what the people need, and that means Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Venezuela doesn't provide security enough, and you have there 8,000 extrajudicial executions per year. You have there, of course, drug trafficking and organized crime prevailing in the society and the politics. You have organized terrorist organizations like ELN or Dissident FARC or Dissident of Dissident FARC, and they are very well armed and they are very able military. So, for example, when the Venezuelan army tried to fight them in Apure, they lost. So they cannot even control their territory. The institutions cannot control their territory. And they cannot feed the people. They cannot provide the health. So that's why we have 6 million Venezuelans abroad today, a whole nation abroad. So that is...
it's more people than Ireland.
Yeah, and that is... and dictatorships export their social crisis. That's the way it operates. I mean, the Cubans reached the stream of putting a port in Mariel, so the Cubans jumped into the water trying to get to Florida. And of course, being a continental country, it was easier to escape from Venezuela, and that made this incredible of people live in the country. And then, of course, the pressure of the migration of the Northern Triangle is related a lot to violence. I think the Central America needs, because it needs a security plan, a Marshall Plan for security. I mean, that is, sometimes, for example, you cannot have connectivity. We have talked a lot about connectivity today, but we cannot put wires there because if we send somebody to put wires, it will be killed. So it's something that it makes, of course, an impact in the life of the communities. So if one day we would be able to help the institutions to bring security to this region, that will bring business and that will bring other opportunities, labor and education for the people. But if you cannot live in peace, that it means very difficult to.
Right. So I'm going to pull a little bit on a couple of things that you've brought up there. So one of them is you mentioned that there's sort of that the institutions don't do what they're supposed to do, right? Serve the people. In prime example is Venezuela, but we see it in other countries, and that they're sort of embedded with this sort of transnational criminal organizations. And also we've talked in other parts of this session about the role of corruption. So rather than wait until the end of the conversation, let me put you in the hot seat right now. Let's jump into the deep end of the pool. And taking advantage of the fact that we have a lot of, American government people here, first of all, what can the United States, present in the room, sort of do to help stop these driving factors, to build up anti-corruption, Juan Zarate's bugbear, and build up the institutions? Can it be, or does it have to come from the inside, or is it partner-led? The new thing is now in counterterrorism is that they say it used to be U.S.-led and partner-supported, and now under Biden they want it to be partner-led and U.S.-supported. What would you like to see as Secretary General of the OAS? What do you think is productive here?
I
the
would like
US
to
to
see
do?
strong relations with the region, and the region being a priority, and consider the Latin American and the Caribbean border as a priority in many ways. Migration is the result of many things that are happening in our democracies and in our social systems. It's not. It is not attacking migration is not the right story. It's not the right thing to do. What you have to do is to deal with the causes. Imagine that here we have an hemisphere that is together, and some of the poorest or developing countries together with a land border, dry border, with the biggest economy in the world and a second G7 country. So imagine that how you can contain that. I mean, if you're not dealing properly with the causes, and the causes are related to this, we need, first of all, stronger democracies.
Stronger democracies. How do we get there? How do we get there?
A stronger democracies is you care about you. I mean, we talked a lot, and the first panel I heard it was about shared values. On shared values, democracy is like the main one in the region, and that is something that needs to address. If we have a hemisphere of shared values, then we have to deal with democracy first. And that it cannot be in conflict with any immediate self-interest that may come. Sometimes
whose immediate self-interest?
It can be here, or it can be wherever else. But we are talking here, so let's say here. Self-interest. It can be economic. It can be about resources. It can be about trade, or it can be migration, and that is self-interest. But we need to build a continent, a hemisphere based on shared values. If we talk about shared values, democracy, human rights, security, development, these are the issues that we need to work. And to build a stronger democracy is the closer your relation will be with the United States, the better will help in order to have to help you improve your democratic standards. But it is not only that. It is also to have the possibility to look a little bit forward related to these other matters, let's say access to rights and equity. We are still the most unequal hemisphere in the world. And so when you have inequality as a pattern in the region, it is very difficult to build strong democracies. And these are structural problems from long ago, from a couple of centuries at least. All our independent life, we have been very unequal. We need to have better conditions to fight violence in the region. Violence, as I said, for example, we count for something like 38% of violent deaths in the world, and we have 8% of the population. Definitely, it cannot work. And no democracy can operate properly under those conditions. Sometimes organized crime, drug trafficking, they fix candidates, sometimes to win, sometimes to lose, sometimes they have to resign, sometimes they are even killed.
Colombia has several.
Colombia,
Mexico.
No, you have more than one country. You have more than one country, and you have even bigger problems than the Colombian one related to this. So this is, and corruption, definitely we come to corruption, is another structural problem that we have in the region. And I am to have institutions that help to fight corruption prove not to be so easy. First of all, in the region, in Latin America, we have a trend of co-opting the judiciary. I mean, it's like it helps the governments to chase better the oppositions, and it helps the governments to deal in an easier way with their own governance. Mm-hmm. So that is something that needs to be addressed. It will be very difficult to fight corruption if we are not able to have an independent judiciary. That is a paragraph of the Summit of the Americas, and we definitely have to fix that. We need more able institutions in order to investigate, and that they would be able to go for the real facts of investigation, for the cases, right. And that is something that we have to address. Corruption, it kills a system. Venezuela is another example. We go back to Venezuela. But imagine that we have had in the region maybe the two biggest cases in the world of corruption. One of Odebrecht. Odebrecht gave something like $800 million in corruption commissions in 15 years. And then you have the Venezuelan case that is completely
it's like 300 billion is missing or something.
Yeah, but imagine that just one case of corruption of PDVSA, the oil company, that is investigated and judged in Florida, is 1.5 billion. That means almost double of all the commissions of Odebrecht in 15 years. So we have these cases of structural corruption that are like rocketed, and we have the cases of structural corruption that it became part of the political culture of many countries, and we have not been able to fix that. And anytime we are trying to do that with international commissions, we are failing, and we have to say that is like struggling with the political culture of those particular systems.
Do you think that there's an educational component here? I mean, one of the things that always comes out is Latin America is the land of the caudillo, right? The strongman politics. But you can get into a bit of a chicken or egg problem. Is it the caudillo because there's not, the institutions have been hollowed out, so you just need like one strong man, which is, by the way, something we're familiar with also from the Middle East. You'll forgive me a little bit that, or Central Asia, where presidents for life prevail, or is it, or did the hollowing out of the institutions create the caudillo, and then the caudillo, the strong man, has a reason to keep them down, and then how do we overcome that? Do we have to educate the citizenry?
It's we have to work the whole political systems, and if you have strong institutions, of course that wouldn't happen. If you have a strong judiciary, an independent constitutional whole of the Supreme Court, if you would have abiding by the Constitution or the executive or the legislative, then it would be easier. The problem is that not everybody is the same. It's not exactly the same. The dictatorships that have happened in the southern cone of the hemisphere, those that they have happened in the Andean area, and those that they have happened in Caribbean area. I mean, the most personal dictators are those related to, for example, Fidel Castro, that practically died in power, Hugo Chavez that died in power. Mm-hmm. So those, the Caribbean region, Trujillo that was killed, and those are the cases of very personalized dictatorships. Mm-hmm. If you see that even in the southern cone, where the dictators were alternating. Now in Uruguay we have like 3 dictators in the 13 years of dictatorship, and Argentina even more. Brazil, Paraguay had Stroessner for a little bit more, but was not as personalized as it was as it is the case of these Spanish Caribbean countries.
Before I open it up to questions, I want to ask you another tough question. I didn't invite you here to be easy. So on 9/11, you signed also the Inter-American Charter, right,
Yes.
for the defense of democracy.
Yes.
One of the, critics. First of all, I'd like to hear you give a little praise in your own words, and also one of those of us who know and love the Organization of American States and the Western Hemisphere, the recurring criticism is, why has it not been enacted? Why has it not really been operationalized the way it could? So, and is this a frustration of yours, or no?
No, the Inter-American Democratic Charter that was approved and signed in that 9/11 is an amazing document, and I really admire how it was built and negotiated, and its contents and the mechanism, and it's really a constitution for the Americas. I like that document very much, and definitely it's not the problem of the document itself. The document has a constitutional value in the hemisphere, and it has served to protect democracy many times, and it has done it in Venezuela too. The legitimacy of the government of Maduro was approved through the charter and
right.
negotiations in the Organization of the American States. The same path we follow with other cases and coup d'etats that have happened in the hemisphere. The problem is it's not the legal tool. It's not the instrument, the convention, the resolution. It is like blaming the criminal code because the criminal exists.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't. So it is not that the problem. The problem is that we always need to be committed to democracy and leave some of this particular interest that
right.
I say aside. And if we are able to do that, and we are engaged and committed to the mechanisms that are contemplated in the Inter-American Democratic Charter, then, and if every government would feel obliged to, it gives the rights to democracy for the first time in history. I mean, it's the right to democracy for the people of the Americas. That
right.
is an amazing thing. I mean, it's something that, and the governments are obliged to fulfill that obligation. So it is a very important tool. But sometimes we are weak. Sometimes we don't. We just expect the things to be fixed by themselves. It happens very often in the international community. The first action in international community is doing nothing, and so expect that everything will be fixed alone. And then only when problems start to be extremely serious, we tend to act. And that is the case when we defend democracy. Sometimes it's not, the poor charter has done more than enough in order to defend democracy in the hemisphere. It is on us to blame that it has not been better, or that we are not living better times.
So it's a matter of political will. So you would like to see more political will in defense of democracy and development in the Western Hemisphere. That would solve a lot of the problems.
The political will of feeling that people are ungrateful with democracy. I mean, ungrateful. Look at Hugo Chavez. He arrived because democracy exists and there were fair elections, and then he just stayed there as long as possible. Look at Maduro. He sort of arrived there in sort of an election, but he has been ungrateful to democracy, and you have seen this pattern a lot along the continent. So people should be more grateful to democracy and give back to democracy what democracy gives to them. The democracy suddenly gives you power, democracy suddenly give you power and respect and position or whatever. Give back to democracy. Make democracy stronger. Make the democracy more able to defend itself.
Thank you. I think that's tremendous. Thank you so much. I'm gonna. I'll reserve a question just in case of crisis moment if you guys don't ask a question. Otherwise, I'm going to start randomly pointing at the room. But please ask a question of Secretary General.
No need.
Please.
No.
Okay. Sorry, I'm bossy.
Yeah, I can see that.
Run my own business.
I'm Kim Pratt with the InfraGard National Members Alliance. So I'm sitting here thinking, a big part of the problem is corruption because Americans hate corruption. And we've seen, Afghanistan fall to corruption and our defeat there largely due to that and the inability to create civil society there. And then we face the same problems in Latin America and South America as well, which is an inhibitor to helping, right, to assisting. So I'm thinking, how does the Homeland Security enterprise assist when we know that the actors down there are bad actors? So what I'm wondering is, a big incentive to change and to democratize maybe is economic, right? Economic incentives help. But we need to provide economic incentives that are benefiting the people, not just those that are holding all the coins.
Right.
And that's the tricky part. But I'm also thinking that, we have a problem with China right now. And China is a giant manufacturer of goods for Americans, obviously. So is there some way that we can incentivize good behavior in our south of our southern border to bring more manufacturing, to bring more technology there, to bring, jobs that are going to pay well to the people there and start providing more technical education down there to shift some of this south of our border. And then there's an incentive to start changing behavior. And just want your thoughts on that.
Supply chain, move it to the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, coming from Uruguay, that is the most, we have one of the most southern capitals in the world. I say that it's completely arbitrary to say down there. In the space, we always feel that we may be up. And there's no point of reference to say we are down there. Well, it's true. American companies and American corporations are maybe some of the biggest victims of corruption in the world, but those corruption needs to be fixed without blowing the system, let's say, and what we need in order to fight corruption are stronger institutions that would be able to monitoring themselves, that would be able to control better and accountability of political leaders and public servants. And we have to work on that. We can also create international commissions to investigate corruption cases in the countries. Or in the most affected countries. That is something that it can be done and it should be done. And of course, to find cooperation, to find the special relation that could bring that level of cooperation that will help to fight corruption. It will not be an easy case, never. It will not be an easy case, never. But it's something that you have to look at in the long term. And of course, you might have read Macbeth, and it's something that is. I like the Lady Macbeth and the kid when they are talking and they are talking about traitors and swears and say and the kids why he will be hanged and because he was a traitor and and then all those traitors have to be hanged. But then the traitors are full because they are much more than honest people. So
Right.
what they don't get together and hang honest people, and sometimes that becomes a reality in some of the places we have to deal with corruption, and that is a tough thing. We have had 2 missions to fight corruption. Now we have the 3rd one in Haiti, and one was not renewed, and the other one was stopped and cancelled after the first year, or maybe even less. So we still have to do a lot to improve our own political culture. But at the same time, we need to build these institutions to make them more able to fight this. The economic incentives are sometimes they operate in the wrong way. And we were talking about the Venezuelan case. I mean, Venezuela got the oil boom, and so, I mean, they saw it as an opportunity for corruption, not as an opportunity to improve and better their economy. So it's not, it doesn't come together, let's say. Sometimes it's like bringing people to a new reality, to make them act in a way with Republican probity, let's say, and austerity. It doesn't not always come together with more flamboyant Latin American politics sometimes. I mean, and it's a pity. It's a pity. I wish I wish we could be better. But what I mean is we have to still build in on the system and not blow the system because there are some corrupt people or because we have to deal with corrupt politicians. Yeah. Because then the costs are bigger. And then we are losing the fight because, for example, these cases of PDVSA and the corruption of PDVSA.
Sorry, for those of you, we assume that the oil company of Venezuela.
The oil company of Venezuela.
Okay, the state-owned enterprise.
It has been, they have been very able to corrupt all around, and that is something that. Imagine that, for example, you put a cooperation project, and this cooperation project, you need a perfect accountability of everything, every dollar that is spent. Mm. And then comes PDVSA and says, there you have something like $20 million, $50 million, $100 million without a receipt. So
they'll hand you 20 million over lunch.
Yeah. So yep. So I always say we need stronger institutions. We need. It was mentioned today, even here in the States. We need all about a stronger civic culture, and we need this sense of Republican probity that is extremely necessary when you do politics. I resolved in a very easy way. I don't have anything. If my salary gets and then it leaves immediately, and that's it. So it's the easiest way to deal with politics is to have anything. If I would have one shadow over me, your dear friends, the Bolivarians and some other Chavistas, Castristas, etc., they would have got my neck already. No?
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure they want it. I think you and I both have arrest warrants, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Do we have any other questions? Yes? Rob Walker gets to have the last word on this, or the last question. Thank you, sir, for this. And for your question.
So, Mr. Secretary General, first of all, thank you for enduring the hot seat and the hot room. You're not off of it just yet, though. And Vanessa, I'm going to put you on it, too.
Oh,
So, Mr. Secretary General, you mentioned the need for a Marshall Plan for Latin and Central and South America. That was a continental-wide plan after World War II, which we blew up. We didn't break Latin America in a war zone. Where would you target that Marshall Plan? I think Plan Colombia, by many measurements, was a success. Can we follow that, and where would you target that?
Yes,
first of all?
exactly.
And then, if I may, sir, I'm sorry, I'm going to put the moderator on the hot seat because she runs a risk consulting firm for the region.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as the greatest threats that are coming out of this region that we need to address as a nation for our own national homeland security? So,
Okay.
please, sir.
You go first.
Okay. Yes. In fact, the right name for that and the one I used before, but it's a Colombia plan for Central America because it should be mainly based on insecurity and dealing with organized crime, drug trafficking, and of course the violence in the region. And so Plan Colombia definitely changed Colombia. Colombia was having at that moment like something like 10,000 kidnapping per year, and definitely it was practically there, almost a failed state, and recover oxygen, and then got an impulse and became a strong country with strong institutions like it is today, and dealing with problems, but with the strong institutions that always help. So we need that and focus on security, because if you don't provide security at the level of communities, at the level of cities, it will be very difficult to bring investment. And as I said, if you cannot even put wires, it will be even more difficult to put a company or an industry. So it's better to land there on dealing with security and making possible for the people to have like a normal life. And of course, and it has to come, of course, with the tools to fight corruption, because you don't want to put some $1 billion there and to lose some percentage of those billions. So it will need a way of assuring the fight against corruption, and the Venezuelan cases, like practically you have to rebuild every single institution in the country and rebuild completely the political system in the country, and to reverse what a friend calls the anti-Darwinism. I mean, it's the political system sometimes in Venezuela is not the survival of the best, but on the contrary. Not, I don't say always, but it has happened. That's why you reach that point of that nothing work, and so it has to be. That is. You need a completely different approach, but how you rebuild it? I mean, it's something that it's like you have to put a country in a standby for 15 years till you rebuild something completely new, and to build it when all this is working is practically everything is absorbed by this corrupt system, and you see it practically in everywhere, everybody, and it's very difficult to make it work like that. So imagine that today this week there was approved the extradition of Alex Saab to the United States.
I was going to discuss that.
To the United States, and today was proposed by the regime to be one of the negotiators in Mexico. Right. So it's something like like the world upside down, no?
Well, I think that was something I wanted. Oh yeah, very quickly
That's
to
yours.
discuss. I'm in red. To discuss is I think that's one of the challenges, and maybe that's one of the risks. The biggest risk to the region remains, in a way, Venezuela, because one of the things I think, as Americans, as I said, I'm Venezuelan American, so I use the term we sometimes sort of interchangeably, depending on what country I'm referring to. But as as Americans, we haven't gotten our heads around what do we do when a major terrorist or criminal, is given the legitimacy of power. Like, oh, we won't intervene. We have it now with the Haqqani network in Afghanistan, and Alex Saab, they want to make him a chief negotiator. This is like, this guy's a hyper-connector who, links the Iranians and the Russians and the Mexican cartels and the Colombian terrorist groups, and has diplomatic immunity from Venezuela. I mean, this guy is like, the super connector of the super connectors of global criminality and money laundering. And they're like, oh, let's throw him in to negotiate the transition to democracy. I mean, I'm not going to fly. I'm of half a mind to fly to Mexico, and I don't know what I'm going to do about it. But this is entirely unacceptable to any of us who have fought for 20 years for the democracy in our country. So I think that the greatest threat is that, and America spent so much time defending, and rebuilding up Colombia, and there's the country next door. The ELN is still shooting, blowing up things in Bogota weekly, not in Bogota, in Cucuta, and shooting at the president's plane. So terrorism is resurgent.
Members of the army.
Yeah, and other members of the army. So terrorism is resurgent. Sendero Luminoso is now, members of it are back in the cabinet of Castillo, which is a whole other issue in Peru. They're tearing themselves apart about what to do about this. But it's something that we need to confront, what happens when they become part of the political apparatus. And that's maybe a question for next time. Thank you very much, sir. It was an honor. Thank you.
Thank you for that cherry on top, Vanessa, Mr. Secretary General. Again, sorry for the hot room. All right, we are wrapping up, I promise. I just want to say, everyone, thank you for coming. I think this is a rip-roaring success for an inaugural event. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. I hope you learned something. I hope you met a new network partner and can further weave the enterprise together out of an event like this and others going forward. Be on the lookout. We will send a after survey where we solicit your feedback on how we should move ahead for next year, and welcome any conversations about partnership in that as we go forward. Here to wrap it all up nice and tight in a bow, HSEG co-chair Michael Chertoff. Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. That was a very interesting presentation, as have all of them been. We've covered a wide range of topics. We've heard from Chris Inglis, we've heard from Ali Mayorkas, we've heard from Governor Hogan. We've talked about domestic terrorism, the border, cybersecurity. There was a working shop on refugees. So there's a lot we've covered in a short period of time. And I think the interchanges we've been able to have on the sides have been great. After a year and a half of doing everything on Zoom, which is pretty plain vanilla, being able to actually encounter people and have offline conversations has really been wonderful, and I think this is something we're all going to appreciate. So I know we've thinned out. I recognize it's cocktail hour. I want to thank Rob for planning and for executing on this wonderful facility, and everybody else who participated. And next year should be even bigger and better. So thank you very much, and God bless and be well.